Learning what makes Jon Jones tick is pretty interesting for me. I mean, the guy, he's very unique, right? There's a fine line in genius and insanity, and the ones that you say that see that are really great at something generally focus on something bizarre that many of the rest of you never even considered. And it's that thing that makes them great. I mean, Jon is a motivated guy. And you'll wonder, well, how does he stay so motivated? He's so good at what he does. What makes him hungry? These are all very fair questions. These are questions that other athletes would ask Jon. Other athletes that want to come out and copy him. Not everybody just wants to know how to punch and kick and do a spinning elbow like Jon Jones. They want to understand how to extend their career. Jon came out and he said he knows that he has to win the heavyweight championship to solidify himself as GOAT. And he believes he's already the greatest of all time. He knows he's the greatest light heavyweight of all time by far. But when he's done with the career, he doesn't want there to be any debate. Now, in the very short term, those are going to be positive things. Those are going to help to drive and motivate and get him out of bed in the morning and get him to the gym to try to obtain goals that he's already achieved, such as being the champion of the world. Hard spot. I mean, you got to find something. And it looks as though Jon has identified for us what it is that he has found in the short term. In the long term, it's a loser's mentality. Or at least I should say it is a losing mentality. Again, his exact words are, I do not want there to be any debate. The whole thing's a debate. There is no championship. There is no title. There is no way to contest this. There is no lineage. There's no competitive architecture. The whole thing is a debate. And he would like for there not to be a debate for him to be the greatest of all time. There has to be a debate. The whole thing is Jon and Daniel Cormier were publicly arguing through social media as recently as 3 weeks ago because Daniel Cormier made the comment that Jon cannot go down as the greatest of all time, including even within the light heavyweight division because he has so many infractions for drug violations and cheating. But that's a real part of the debate. History is written by the winners, not by the losers. So the way the story is going to go and the way the story is going to be told is all going to be an argument. And many people that are going to have a meaningful say in that argument have already voiced their opinion that if you cheat the sport and you cheat your opponents, your wins don't count. Which isn't only a new phenomenon in MMA, it's one that's got a history within baseball or football, tennis, other sports where people have been in violations of the rules. So if you want a clean slate, that would be the most that you could hope for. The most that you could reasonably hope for is a clean slate. Okay, I did this back then, but I went straight on this day. I want to be judged from here on. Now, that's asking a lot, but let's say you get your way because that's the most that you could ask for. There's really not any records that Jon has. He doesn't have the most defenses. He doesn't have the most wins. He doesn't have the most years at top. If you reset that slate, which would be anything post UFC 200, and then that's before you get into the Pico Grand discussion, where a guy passed a drug test even though he failed the drug test. Only athlete in the history of the world that I know that you could say that about. But that continues to live on. So it just gets to be a little bit weird. How much is that going to follow him? Could he get a clean slate if he went up to heavyweight, did the champ thing in a champ era, and by the way, was now at a disadvantage because he's weighing in at 230 when they've got the right to go up to 265. How much weight would that carry? I think that Jon is completely right that carries weight. You're splitting hairs, though, and you're being silly. That's what an argument is. Arguments are generally silly, and they're done by silly people trying to convince somebody who already has their mind made up and they're not willing to change their mind, even if confronted with new evidence, is silly, and it's a waste of time. But that's what we're doing here. So when you have a champ such as Conor McGregor, who made this thing fashionable, it was unique in that Conor was still the 145-pound champion when he became the 55-pound champion. George St. Pierre, by example, came in later and did the champ thing. If you wanted to be literal on the fact, did not. He was a champ of one division, and then at a separate time, he was a champ of another division. Now, that's close enough for the girls that we go with, right? We count that. But Jon foolishly gave up one championship, so he cannot do what Conor did. He just can never be the champ. So when you have this debate that he hopes doesn't exist, but it does exist. In fact, the whole thing is premised around a debate, he's going to lose to Conor just in that regard. Conor was the champ and another champ. He had a belt over both shoulders. I'm only offering this to you because this is where these debates go. So in the short term, for Jon to have something to be motivated about is very good for Jon. And it's also interesting. I found that interesting, that something still drives a guy so decorated with accolades. On the other hand, you look at, you go, Jon, be careful here. And you don't want to tell him this now, right? If you're part of Team Jon, whatever gets the guy motivated now, you don't want to tell him this whole thing's going to be a debate and you're already coming up short because your management team foolishly had you give up a belt. So even if you become the champion of the division, you are not a champ. You're not part of the champ club because you took yourself out of it. With our help, we foolishly allowed you to sign this. I mean, it's just one of those weird things. Matt Lindland, top wrestler in the country, back in his collegiate days. Going into his senior year, he's ranked number 1. NCAA tournament, he's 36-0. He's the Big 8 champion, which back then was in argument with the Big 12. I apologize, the Big 10 for what the most difficult division was to win. Matt had everything going his way. Before the season started, he got called into his coach's office. And the coach had him write down all of his goals before he got there, and they were going to assess Matt's goals. The coach did this with each athlete. And one of the things that Matt only wrote 2 things down. Be undefeated, be a national champion. So when the coach read that, he told Matt, you're not going to go undefeated. You're going to get beat, but we can still do this national I don't want this to deter you. When you get beat, you can still win the national tournament. Very few guys don't lose that go on to be national champions. So just know that. And so the coach was telling him from a good-hearted standpoint of let's never get detoured from the bigger of the 2 goals, which is to be national champion. Let's not ever get detoured from that. But it's not what the coach said. The coach, who Matt Lindland trusted, said to him, you're not going to go undefeated. So every single time that Matt stepped on the mat, he would look across at the opponent and he would wonder, is this the one? Is this the one coach assured me was going to happen? He assured me I was going to get beat. Is this the night? He finds himself in the opening round at 9 a.m. of the NCAA tournament, 36-0, Big 8 champion, number 1 seed, asking himself, is this the one? It hasn't happened yet, and coach told me it would happen, and we're to the final tournament. And sure enough, biggest upset of the tournament went against Matt Lindland. I bring that to you because when Jon comes out and says, I don't want there to be a bait, he wants to win a fictional crown that is only written down and only recognized by the biggest voice in the room who happens to write it down on a .com somewhere, which is nothing more than a debate. You see why the guy's kind of stupid?